you can't destroy these. Why, they're company property. Destination boys. Look, Belfast, Tipperary, Dublin, Cheltenham. Oh, you can burn that one.
Hi everyone, Gareth here from Real Stories. This is the first video and audio interview that I'm doing as part of the newsletter. Today I am at Tom's house, and Tom is the founder of the Will Hay Appreciation Society, among many other things, notable Meltonian, if you were to look on Wikipedia as well, which is nice. Hi Tom.
Hi Gareth.
Nice to meet you.
Welcome to my house.
Oh no, it's an absolute pleasure.
I know.
So I wanted to come here to ask you a few questions about your Will Hay Appreciation Society. Not many people will know about Will Hay.
Not you say that.
I say that, but yeah, you tell me. So can you tell me a bit about Will Hay?
Well, back to the very start, I guess. Will Hay was born 100 years before me.
Mm-hmm.
Not to the exact date. He was born 1888 in Stockton-on-Tees, which, just to kind of give you a picture in the cinema history, that's a year before Charlie Chaplin, 2 years before Stan Laurel. So it was that sort of age group of performers. Sort of came in towards the end of music hall and the beginning of cinema, though. He was quite a bit later than Chaplin and Stan Laurel because he didn't move over to the US.
Okay.
In 1914, he started working with Fred Carno, who was basically the theatre impresario. So he was famously invented the... what did he invent? That's
famously. But Charlie Chaplin was part of Fred Carno's.
So Chaplin and Stan Laurel. So they were all... I'm not 100% sure if Will Hay was there at the same time as them. I'm pretty sure he was represented at the same time. Because I know during the First World War, he was one of the players in Fred Carno's army, which is what it was called. He invented the pie to the face gag.
Okay.
That's the famous one that I couldn't remember. And so sort of following on from that, he began a music hall act where he played the schoolmaster, which was his most famous character. And he kind of played that same character in different guises in different films, so Oh, Mr. Porter and things like that. He's still playing the same kind of schoolmaster character, who's somebody who's bumbling and in a position where he doesn't actually know what he's doing. So that's the sort of thing he did to start with, and it was kind of satire. So he was playing the schoolmaster character, but he was taking the piss out of people in authority. And that's how he got really popular with the masses. So everyone who was going to the music halls was loving his kind of take on people in authority.
So, yeah, because I've watched Oh, Mr. Porter. I've not seen... He's done like 22 films, something like that? 21, 22 films?
Something like that.
But his most popular one seems to be Oh, Mr. Porter.
Yeah.
But what I really liked about it was some of the, like you say, it's very linguistic humour that it's caught on with things like Half Hour and all that sort of era of comedy when TV became popular.
Yeah.
That sort of style of humour was really popular. Would you say that's his legacy? What would you say is?
I'd say, yeah. I think if he'd lived longer, because he died in 1949. If he'd lived 10 more years, he'd have been in sitcoms. He'd have been in the first kind of Hancock's Half Hour, Steptoe, and that sort of thing. Because with Hancock's Half Hour, Galton and Simpson, who wrote that, were big Will Hay fans.
Right. Okay.
And you can see the similar sort of traits of people who are trying to get one up in society. Yeah,
because I think, like I said at the beginning, not many people know, but obviously a lot of people know if you started a Will Hay Appreciation Society, which is nearly 8,000 members strong. But like I've asked a few people I know that didn't know him, but clearly he's had an influence on comedy.
Yes. Well, I mean, sort of things like going back to sitcoms, just because that's kind of his style of humour, I guess. Because cinema sort of moved away from that, but sitcoms like Dad's Army. Anything where it's got a kind of a person in the authority position, but they're just bumbling and don't really deserve to be there, and they're, that is what Jimmy Perry and David Croft, who wrote Dad's Army. So Jimmy Perry cited that he was on a train journey thinking about Oh, Mr. Porter, and then it came on TV a week before he wrote the pilot, and he thought, that kind of works. The old man Harbottle character, then Albert the fat boy, and then Will Hay as the one in the middle who was the incompetent authority figure. And that's, Mannering and Pike and Jonesy in Dad's Army. And it literally, that sort of trio of characters. But you can also see that in Only Fools and Horses, the old man, the idiot, and the other idiot. But it's progressed. So there's definitely a legacy there in sitcom. And also Ealing comedies as well, because after Oh, Mr. Porter, so one of the last films that Will Hay made was My Learned Friend, which was actually his final feature film. And it's completely different to all the earlier films. It's actually one about him playing a barrister, I think. But basically he's the one who sends this guy down who's committed a murder. And the murderer is going around killing everybody at the trial. It's really dark, really funny, dark comedy. And you can see that's how he would have gone on in Ealing comedies like Lady Killers and films like that. It would have been that sort of really dark cinema of the 50s.
I want to talk about what happened to a bloke called Johnny the Fox. He's sitting on a game of poker with us night before last. Just like it might have been you.
Oh, really?
He finished up by holding 4 aces. Just like it might have been you. Stay put, mister. I ain't finished yet.
I've mentioned the Will Hay Appreciation Society a few times. Started in 2009.
Yes.
What's the story behind that? How did that come about?
Well, I'd never heard of Will Hay until I was about 18.
Right.
But I grew up watching one of my favourite sitcoms, because I love railways, was Oh, Dr. Beeching, which was a 90s sitcom. Again, David Croft, who wrote Dad's Army, and Richard Spendelove. And I must have got talking to somebody when I was about 18 about it, a friend of my dad's, and he said, oh, you have to watch this DVD of Mr. Porter. Never heard of it. Watched it, absolutely loved it. And then I went to uni that year, I think, and a couple of years later I wrote my dissertation, and I decided to write it on Will Hay and his influence in comedy. The questions that you just asked me, which was quite easy to try and remember. But yeah, so what I did was I actually set up a Facebook group, which was a few hundred people, as a research base to see if there's anybody who remembered Will Hay, because I couldn't really find much on the internet. There was a website. I think Trevor Buckingham set up a website which is now gone, and there wasn't very much online really, apart from a few photos. So I thought I'd set up a Facebook group, and then it kind of lay dormant for a few years, and gradually people started joining it, and the interest was kind of building. And I found that every time we put videos on there, public videos, they were shared a lot. So obviously a lot of people who really liked these films. And then gradually people were joining, and it tended to be people older than me, so probably in their 50s and 60s, because it turns out that back in the 70s, when the BBC didn't show crap on daytime TV, they used to show old films. So a lot of Laurel and Hardy, a lot of Will Hay films. And so people of that sort of slightly older generation than me have really fond childhood memories of Will Hay films. And so we had loads of people start joining. So much so that we had a first Will Hay Day in 2014, and then that we had Hay's family members join the society. So Will Hay's granddaughters are in the society, Graham Moffat's children, Maud Marriott's grandchildren, loads of family members have basically kind of given us their seal of approval. So it's sort of spiraled from there. Now we're at membership just under 8,000 people. Facebook page is about 24,000 people around the world following it, mostly UK, but a lot of people in Australia, quite a few in the US are finding him. So it's showing that if he'd probably been marketed better, he could have gone international, I think.
Yeah. And as you say, if he lived slightly longer, some of the comedies that you mentioned were still being played when we were kids on BBC Two. All the Hancock's Half Hour and all that early era BBC comedy was being showed when we were kids.
I mean, even the stuff like, it's actually 20 years old now, which makes me feel really old, but I was just thinking of newer stuff like Alan Partridge and David, The Office.
Yeah.
You know, that character is David Brent is somebody who's in a position where he shouldn't be in that position.
Yeah.
You know, it's all kind
Fish
of
out of
stemming
water.
from it's that traditional British person getting, you know, load of shit dropped on their head, and you know, it's that tradition in British comedy, I think.
You mentioned heydays. You've had a few of those.
Yeah, the last one was 2019, and then something happened. So we had a fairly busy couple of years, because 2018 we went down to Cliddesden in Hampshire, which is where they filmed Oh Mr. Porter, and we crowdfunded in the society a memorial bench that we put in the grounds of the village hall there, which is the closest we could get to the location it was filmed, because it's now a private garden. So we did that in 2018. We had a bench unveiling with Pete Waterman came and did that, which was amazing. And then 2019 we unveiled a plaque for Graham Moffat at the pub in Market Harbour, where he became a landlord after he kind of retired from acting.
Really? Oh, nice.
And so they were the last two kind of big things that we did, and then we've not really done anything since because of the pandemic, and now just finding the time to organise the things because it's so difficult. But we have got in the works, we've actually funded already, so it is in the works, a plaque for Moore Marriott, which will be down his retirement, the house that he opened a shop when he retired. He didn't retire for very long. He died, I think, the same year as Will Hay, 1949.
He's the older
Yeah,
one, isn't he?
but he wasn't that much older. He was, I think he was 42 or around that age when he made Oh Mr. Porter, and he looks like 80. So he was a bit like Clive Dunn, where he always made up to look older.
Yeah. Last couple of questions. I think you've pretty much answered it, but just in case there's any other nugget of information, why do you think that the Will Hay films are so popular?
I think I've answered that question. No, I mean, the reasons I said, in terms of the people who are fans now, a lot of it comes from what they were watching as kids, because they were repeated. The railway film connections, channels like Talking Pictures. Can't remember the channel number, but they show a lot of the Will Hay films now, and we tend to get a surge in members every time there's a Will Hay film on there. So people are seeing them and thinking, "Oh, I remember that," or they enjoy it because they've never seen it before. But I think fundamentally it's the same reason that people have enjoyed, you know, that still enjoy Dad's Army and all these things. It's because it's fundamentally a British character that people can relate to. It's the reason it sort of works here. It doesn't work in the US and places as well, because they tend to like a hero who like wins, like a Jimmy Stewart kind of character. They like somebody who might go out there and come out on top at the end, because that's the American hero. Whereas a British hero tends to be, they'll bumble along. They might be able to take the piss out of authority for a bit, and they might win in a way, but they never actually end up on top. And that's exactly Will Hay. You know, that's what his characters were.
When I watched it, Oh Mr. Porter, I was that feeling. It's nostalgia for the comedies I watched, because you can see the comedy that, like I mentioned at the start, like growing up, the kind of jokes and set pieces that came up have a similar style. I can't remember which one. There's a guy came in who they were looking after his pig. And that whole sequence is so funny because it is that sort of sitcom.
And I know the line as well.
Good morning.
So there you are.
Yes, well, what can I do for you, Mr.
My name is Murphy and I want my pigs.
Oh, have you got your voucher?
Is this what you mean?
Yes. Are you sure you left them at the station?
Of course I'm sure. Come on now, let's have them.
They've been here a long time, you know. Used to come sooner. See, we've had rather a cold spell, and pigs are only human after all.
Go on.
Pigs are only human after all. I know. It's just so stupid,
it's just
isn't it?
Back and forth, really, like such a British comedy back and forth between them. It's really quick.
Yeah, and they were really quick as well, and that's a good thing, because Will Hay had a lot of influence in the scripts and things as well, and he didn't just sit back. A lot of the films he directed later on, but he kind of it was different to comedies that had come earlier because he put so much work into characters and building the characters, and so it's not just silly situations. There's funny lines and good plots and really good characters. So you can see that, and that's kind of why they still stand out now. Because at the time as well, you're talking, say, late 30s. This is obviously there was TV, but it was home entertainment. And he was, I think, the third biggest star after George Formby and Gracie Fields. Box office draw, so third biggest in the country at the end of the 30s. And just think how big that would be if that was, translated to today. Yeah. So yeah, it's definitely a very popular comic. You can see why it's lasted.
Well, thanks, Tom. Really interesting. You can get, if you type in Will Hay Appreciation Society on Facebook.
Yeah, you'll find us. We're the one with nearly 8,000 members, not the other one.
Well, this is going to push it to even closer to 8,000.
Yeah, thank you.
Maybe by like 1 or 2.
Yeah,
so.
thanks. Don't worry, I'll share this. You'll get three more followers.
Thanks, mate. That's great. Thanks, Tom. Thank you.
Thank you, Gareth.
No.
Thanks for coming.
I'll leave. I'll make a sharp exit. Thank you.